back.
I want my
baby back, baby back, baby back.
I want my
baby back.
Chili's baby back ribs.
Hey, and welcome back to the Office Field Guide. Today we're looking at The Client. The setup for this one is that Michael and Jan head off to save the branch with a major sale, and the rest of the staff perform a table read of Michael's screenplay, Threat Level Midnight. The Client is the 7th episode of the second season, or 13th episode overall. It was written by Paul Lieberstein and directed by Greg Daniels. It aired on November 8th, 2005, and was viewed by about 7.5 million people. Interestingly, during the production of this episode, Kevin Riley, NBC Entertainment's president, surprised the cast and crew by ordering a full season of The Office. He later likened the series to Seinfeld or Cheers, noting that they also had slow starts. So let's get to closing. Welcome to Chili's. Need to host an office party? We got you covered. Need to smooth over something you did on Halloween? We have gift certificates. Chili's is the new golf course. It's where business happens. So come to Chili's for our awesome blossoms. Come to Chili's to find love. Come to Chili's to save your branch.
I feel God in this Chili's tonight.
I want my baby back, baby back, baby back. I want my baby back, baby back, baby back. I want my
baby back ribs.
Come to Chili's.
No one asked you anything ever?
And talking about jokes that just fly by.
Here's the thing, Chili's is the new golf course. It's where business happens. Small Businessman Magazine.
It's such a nuanced joke, and it's a great example of the wittiness of the writing of The Office. First, Chili's is absolutely not the new golf course. Secondly, and I could be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure there's no magazine called Small Businessman Magazine. The title of that magazine could be read a couple different ways. Small Businessman, implying that it's for men who run small businesses, or small, meaning insignificant, businessman, meaning that it's an insignificant man, which is much more in line with Michael at this point in the series. Regardless, I love it, and I'd love to read the letter that Michael sent the editor. As we've discussed a few times this season, the writers bring their real-life experiences to the screen in The Office. The scene where Oscar tells a story about a date, getting a background check on him was based on an actual date that Paul Lieberstein went on, which sounds just rough. This episode, though, hits its stride in humor, especially for the first half of the episode, before the staff find the manuscript. I timed it out. On average, there is a joke for every 9 seconds of runtime, and many of these range from hilarious to just amusing. And while obviously that's subjective, this might be one of the first successful killing fields of jokes that the writers have talked about. I want to say that I noticed it first when I was watching this sequence with Jan and Michael leaving the office. Michael can't say anything right, and it's painful to watch, but you just can't help but be amused at the way that they weave this conversation masterfully.
I think you all could just take off now.
Michael, this shouldn't take more than an hour.
Well,
Do you always shut down the entire office when you leave for an hour?
Now, let me also say I love Tim Meadows.
You said, world, this is my blood. It's red, just like yours. So love me.
And I'm so glad he's forever ingrained into the Office universe. It's a shame we didn't get to see more of him. It's also been noted that most of the scenes at Chili's were improvised.
Chili's baby back ribs.
But,
No, wait out the second one.
okay.
And also notably, most of the table read was improvised.
Agent Michael Scarn, you lost some weight.
Thank you for noticing.
And knowing that now changes the way I watch this entire sequence.
Ha ha ha, Agent Michael Scarn, you're so funny. Word.
Threat Level Midnight is one of my favorite reoccurring jokes in the entire series. It's pure genius that a guy like Michael Scott has taken the time to write out a screenplay starring himself and the people he knows. The bit where Dwight figures out that he's the buffoon in the story is amazing, but I do think it begs the question that since Catherine Zeta-Jones is Agent Michael Scarn's assistant in the screenplay, a character who obviously is into Scarn,
First message is, I love you. That's for me.
Not in 1,000 years, Catherine. We work together. And get off my desk.
is it possible that Michael wrote that character the way he did because he has feelings for Pam? Between this episode, Diwali, Fun Run, Dinner Party, and surely there's more references, I think there's enough to make a solid case here. Let me know what you think in the comments. I know that this relationship turns more father-daughter type by the end of Michael's arc on the show, but that's primarily after Michael fell in love with Holly. So let me know what you think in the comments. Anyway, back to Threat Level Midnight. There are so many references to this throughout the entire series, but a few episodes before Michael's send-off, we finally get to see the abbreviated version of Threat Level Midnight.
Clean up on aisle 5.
And that episode seems to be divisive in the Office fandom. But to me, it's about closing a solid character arc, and it's one of my favorite episodes of the entire series. And while in The Client, we get a glimpse of Michael's future movie-making abilities, we also get to see a glimpse of the future of Jim and Pam. Every time I see this sequence, I think of what Pam says in the finale.
Jim was 5 feet from my desk, and it took me 4 years to get to him. It'd be great if people saw this documentary and learned from my mistakes.
And I think this is a great segue to the deeper meaning.
Why don't you explain this to me like I'm 5?
Paul Lieberstein said that the first idea that anybody came up with for this episode was the final shot, where Jim and Michael look at each other and shake their heads, suggesting that they have been through similar experiences. The rest of the episode was written to lead to that scene. And while I think that there probably was a more poetic way to get to this final scene, what a humanizing episode for Michael. I can vividly remember watching this for the first time and thinking that they were completely turning his character from the awfulness of Season 1 Michael. It's in this moment with Jim, someone who is extremely relatable to the audience, is now relating with Michael. And by proxy, so are we. And not only that, but seeing him excel in his position and essentially save the branch puts Michael Scott on a whole new level. In both the A and B plot, we see our lead characters exhibiting their strengths. Michael's killing it with the sale, and Jim's rallying the group to yet another pointless, yet extremely entertaining venture and connecting with his lady friend as well. Both plotlines' resolutions start with the leads connecting with their love interest in an intimate way. But they're both trying to make a square peg fit into a round hole, and as the episode ends, they're both left in the wake of crushed hopes of what they thought could be the start of something new. And I think this fits exactly where Lieberstein wanted this to go. An episode that would deepen the dramatic tension as an underlying subplot throughout the entire season, and obviously more seasons to come. There isn't much of a message to be pulled from this other than the knowing nod that both of them give each other is a nod to us as an audience that sometimes life just doesn't add up, and it's our connections with others that can help us navigate through those tough times. Or I don't know, maybe this whole episode was just an excuse to get Rainn Wilson in his underwear.
Michael?
I've always loved that they show so much of Dwight's character in this episode between his lines. I mean, it says a lot about a man who's this excited over a fountain firework that his uncle gave him. It also says a lot that he had a fire extinguisher with him and that he slept in the office. And now that I think of it, they never explain why he slept in the office. My assumption was he was waiting for Michael and Jan to return to the office, which also says something about Dwight's intense outlook about his job.
Hello, Dwight.
Did you do her?
Dwight's pretty awesome, but let's dish out some Dundees.
And then I gotta get him to the Dundees.
The Dundee for the best storyboard drawing goes to Greg Daniels.
And there he is, in the flesh, Agent Michael Scarn. Now we know what he looks like.
As the story goes, Daniels asked several team members to draw up posters for Threat Level Midnight, and they all came back way too competent. So Daniels drew them out himself to get that real unprofessional, low-quality look, and that's awesome. The Dundee for the best acting of the episode goes to Melora Hardin. She's incredible in this scene.
Kenneth Road, born and raised. Spent my whole life right here in Lackawanna County, and I do not intend on moving.
You can see the life come back to her as Michael closes the sale.
Corporate gonna go ballistic, but you think we could, Jan? What gives you the right?
Let's start with the cold opening. This one unfortunately just doesn't do it for me. It's not bad, it's just fine-ish, but on a scale of cold openings, I'm gonna give it a 2 out of 5. As for the episode, I give it a 4 out of 5. If this were a real scale, it might be somewhere lower on the 4s, but it is what it is. I think this episode's great. It efficiently uses its time for humor and storytelling. The improv work at Chili's and the table read of Threat Level Midnight is incredible. The work to continue to curb Michael's arc from Season 1 is in full effect in this episode. Though this does kick off the Michael and Jan saga, it is such a good episode. But with that, we're coming to a close. What did you think of The Client? Think there's anything to the Pam and Catherine Zeta-Jones connection? Any thoughts on the boundary breaking that we see in this episode? Plenty of things to talk about here, and I'd love to hear what you have to say. Consider giving this video a like and subscribing so that you can get notified for next week when we cover the performance review episode. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time.
Grr.